Me right now to talk more about that is Stephen Miller. He's the founder of America First Legal and architected President Trump's immigration policy. Stephen, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I want to start off with the border, Stephen, because we are seeing this border crisis expand way beyond Texas. In fact, when I came back from my second trip to the border, I've been there 3 times. The second trip, the one issue that I kept hearing so much was that it was going into Arizona. The gotaways are in Arizona. And now we're seeing the Yuma, Arizona situation worsen. What can you tell us?
Yes, well, I'm in close touch with a number of my former colleagues in the Department of Homeland Security who have been sounding the alarm for months now that the situation in Yuma, Arizona is completely out of control. Yuma, Arizona is under siege. Remember, the population of Arizona is a fraction of the population of Texas, about 7 million in Arizona compared to Texas' 30 million. So this is bombarding an extremely small state compared to the size of Texas. So they're totally, completely overwhelmed. And there's two people in this country responsible for this crisis, and that's Senator Mark Kelly and Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Let me tell you how Washington works when you have a 50-50 split Senate. One phone call from either Senator Sinema or Senator Kelly to the White House that simply says, I'm a no on nominations, I'm a no on legislation, and I'm a no on Build Back Better until you end catch and release, and Biden folds. He folds. The fact that they haven't made that phone call, the fact that they haven't even called publicly for an end to catch and release is monstrous. It is unforgivable. So if you're a citizen of this country, whether you live in Arizona or not, understand, either one of those two people has the power with one phone call to shut this down, and I pray that they will change their mind and do so.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, just this morning, we have statements from Kyrsten Sinema and from Mark Kelly saying that they are going to be watching the developments, that they have asked the administration to get a hold and get some immigration policy in place. But you're right. I mean, now we're getting these statements from these two senators. We haven't heard anything about this before this. I mean,
yeah, those statements,
probably yeah.
Look, I've been doing this for many years. Those statements mean literally nothing. Zero. Asking for more resources means send more people to release people more quickly into our communities. Unless your elected official is saying, end, catch, and release, restore the Trump policy of detain and deport, which worked like a miracle, it's meaningless. So again, does Senator Sinema support continuing or abolishing catch and release? Does Mark Kelly support continuing or abolishing catch and release? Because as long as catch and release persists, the whole world, hundreds and hundreds of cities, thousands and thousands of regions, the whole world is going to be descending on Arizona's border, over 100 countries from across planet Earth. They have the power to stop it by saying no support for nominees, no support for legislation, no support for Build Back Better, unless catch and release ends, and they won't do it.
Well, I find that extraordinary. I think you make such an important point, and I'm going to focus on these two senators and what they're doing from here on out, because we have seen nothing up until now. And Texas, as you mentioned, doesn't even have that kind of leverage that you actually see the leverage that they have in Arizona. What do you make of where we are? We've got 600,000 gotaways this fiscal year, Stephen. 2 million people having been apprehended. And by the way, it could be many more than 600,000. This is an estimate. Obviously, we don't know for sure because they got away.
Right. Those are the known gotaways. Those are the gotaways that they can credibly predict got away. Right. There's another population of unknown gotaways for whom we have no information, and that number could be unimaginably large. And again, to pick up on your point about Texas, yes, Texas has less leverage because Joe Biden doesn't need the votes of Ted Cruz or John Cornyn. Right? That's just the bottom line. I salute and applaud Texas for fighting so hard on this issue while Arizona has two senators who've been MIA. My organization, America First Legal, aflegal.org, we're partnering with the great Ken Paxton to sue over these lawless, ruinous migration policies. But just an important point about how bad this is, which people didn't realize because President Trump did such an extraordinary job. Because of the cheapness of modern travel, because of the ease of being able to get airfare from another continent, being able to come to the Western Hemisphere, this is a global phenomenon. President Trump kept the whole world from coming to our borders illegally. Now, with the cancellation of those policies, we have people from every region, every corner, every stretch of this earth coming into our communities, depleting our health care, depleting our public services, bringing narcotics, bringing weapons. This is a public safety, a public health, and an economic disaster voluntarily inflicted.
Well, did you see that they sent back 2 people for the Remain in Mexico program? I mean, this was just so outrageous.
No, he's violating, in my view, and I'm speaking only for myself, he's violating the court injunction. In my view, I'm speaking only for myself here, he's violating the court injunction, and I believe if the House retakes the majority, that should be first up in the articles of impeachment.
Well, how are the Republicans doing? I mean, you and I spoke about the leadership in the Senate and why you're seeing Republicans vote with Democrats on things like infrastructure, debt ceiling.
Yep, and government funding bills. I want to talk about Senate leadership for a moment. Senate leadership, because in the Senate you need 60 votes. The House is a simple majority. And I give great credit to House leaders for fighting tooth and nail despite not having any procedural tools. The Senate leadership has made a series of inexplicable decisions. I'll key in on one right now. Not once, but twice, they gave the tranche of votes that Biden needed to get funding for his open-ended Afghan resettlement program. This is unthinkable. Why wouldn't you say we're going to block any government funding bill that has open borders immigration riders on it? If the tables were turned, right, and it was a Republican in the White House and he wanted a pro-security measure attached to a funding bill, Democrats would block it. So why are open borders measures getting through? You can win this issue. You can win it. I swear to you, you can.
Joe Biden has been able to beat somebody, the Republicans. That's the only people Joe Biden can beat. Real quick before you go, Stephen, you saw Hillary Clinton and her master class. I mean, when you look at her crying, initially you're thinking, well, okay, she's crying. I'm sorry about that. But then you remember how she was actually the creator of the Russia hoax, this made-up collusion story that half of the country believed for 3 years.
Yes, now what she did to this country is criminal. It's absolutely criminal. It's hateful. It's odious. And there has to be accountability. And here's the bottom line. When Republicans take the majority, they need to have an agenda for accountability. They need to have an agenda for fighting crime. They need to have an agenda for fighting open borders. They need to have an agenda for fighting big tech. They need to have an agenda for holding this administration accountable and for issuing subpoenas to ensure that that happens. And if they do, they will go down in history as the greatest Republican majority we've ever had.
All right, Stephen Miller, we will leave it there. Great to see you this morning. Thanks so much. Stephen Miller joining us this morning.
Because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that